Hi Judy, nice of you to drop by. Good to see you. You seem to have about 3 in at the moment. Let's wait a little longer to see who else is coming. It's very, very hot. John, good evening to you, sir. How are you? Michael, good evening. Oh, something just happened. Nothing worth worrying about. So, okay, I hope everybody's had a stunning weekend. I know I've been pretty busy. I been playing trains for most of it, gotta admit. Yeah, it's all been good though. Excellent. Looking forward to tonight. I thought you didn't do flower. No, I don't normally, Judy. This would be the 3rd or 4th one I've done recently. I don't know what's going on with me. Yeah, I'm fine, John. Thank you so much, mate. So much. Keith, good evening to you, sir. Yeah, I'm dripping. I tell you, I only put this on about 2 minutes ago and I'm already sort of like dripping and melting away. Wendy, we've got guests. You've got guests. Oh, here's Tracy with you. Is that who you mean? Teresa, yes, a scorcher, all right. I've got windows open as best I can. Yeah, well, I'm not going to stop it, Teresa. I do enjoy it, I've got to say. As long as everyone's enjoying what I'm doing and getting something from it, and we can hopefully grow the momentum, then all the better for it. That'd be great. Let's have a look. And making sure I'm not missing any. Derek, I missed you. Good evening, sir. Good evening to you. Now then, John, question for you, sir. I went to a person today and yeah, I guess I like the heat too, John, but they're not stuck in a little sweat box like this. Unfortunately, is not that great. But yes, John, while I've got you there, I went and saw a friend today and bought some stuff off him. Most of it's not very good, but some of it was okay and useful, and some I shall eBay. But I felt that I got these now. If I can show you those too well. There's some horses there, and in this packet there are telegraph poles, loads of fencing, and some people all on sprue. And they're all engaged, mate. No good to me. If they are of any good to you, you're welcome to them. Just DM me your postal address. I'll stick them in the post and send them off to you. You're welcome to them. Hope they do you a favour. If they're not any good to you, don't worry about it. I'm not worried either way. But if they're useful, then you're welcome. Anyway, with that said and done and out the way, maybe we ought to start thinking about painting some flowers. Everyone knows I don't like doing flowers, but I am a glutton for punishment, so let's have a look at some flowers in oil. So another bit of Great Dixter. I'm going to go through this pint of water in no time at all. I may even take a little time out to go and grab another one halfway through if I need it. Right. Yes, flowers. You see that procrastination in my voice? Or you can hear it. Good evening, Ben. Good evening to you, sir. My glasses keep slipping down my nose. I should have had a Pinocchio nose. It could have straddled anywhere it wants to then. Oh, you're off, Wendy. You're not staying around. You're feeding guests. That's fine, mate. If you let me know where you are, then I'll get them in the post to you. Not a problem. Just see, get them good use would be good. Alright, okay, so floors. Now, I keep saying that I've not done anything toward it yet. Right. We're a bit thin on the ground tonight, but we will press on. Now, my normal drawing. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. A little bit of umber in there. And let's just start pushing around a bit of stuff on this canvas. David, good evening to you, sir. Right, now, this is predominantly a really dark area. And normally one would say that you put your lights on top of your darks. And you can do that. I fancy doing what I did the other day. And I don't have it here to show you. No, I'm pretty sure. No, I haven't. I took it back to the gallery. No, she's not in detention. I think she's got some guests that she has to cook for. I think that's very, very unreasonable of the guests to expect that, personally. I think that she should be allowed to watch this and put a sign in the air and an arrow to the point where the kitchen is. And then get on with it. Anyway, right, so it's all about this pot. And what I was saying was, yes, normally you go light on dark. The other day I put lights on first and painted all the negative spaces, and that's really what I would like to do tonight if I can. So I'm just going to go in and start just to plot our urn. I want it sufficiently. This is quite a big canvas. I don't normally, or I wouldn't normally do such a big one for such a subject. But it allows two things. It allows me to possibly be a little more expressive if I wanted to be. I want a bigger brush than that for a start off. Something a bit chunkier to draw with would be good. And so yes, it will allow me that privilege to get a little bit more expressive. So I'm going to come in quite large with our pot, I think, and then I've got all these other flowers that are going off over here. So I'm just going to create a rather large oval shape, which would suggest their placement, something like that. And then there is a lower set, there is some sort of plant here. So I think that pot could be my best t-shirt, by the way. I hope you fully appreciate what goes into these. Look, my best t-shirt. What goes into these setups to make sure that it all works fine for you. Made that slightly more. And as I was saying, there is that flower there, which I'm just going to put there, and its stems and leaves, like that. Have I missed anybody? Wendy should perhaps start cooking about 9:30 PM. I think that's a jolly good idea, John. I'll let you suggest that to her, though. On the fact that I'm a real coward. I'm just going to put in another shape here, which is where this step, and I'm going to change this step a little bit. I want this step to be a little bit more than it is showing. So I'm changing a little element or two of this painting. I'm going to put the step in there, out through there, and like so. Nice angle. Courses of bricks, of course, coming down like so, getting wider as they come down, and very suggestive like that. And there are two courses, so let's put that one in there, and let's put another one in through here. And then we've got the base, which all this is sitting on, and the underneath under here. So it's just building up all the different components, basically. And there is a bit of a wall or something going on here, so I better put that in, suggest that. You can hear the scratching across the canvas. What that is my fingernails just giving me a guide on my lower two fingers, just to tell me where I'm going and keeping a certain height off the canvas. There is a sort of vine or something growing up there. Can't quite see what it is. And then we've got this beautiful display of flowers that I'm just again giving it a shape. I'm coming back down with the lid actually. I'm going to take that down a bit because I love the idea of these flowers being a sort of larger shape and a little bit less towards the height of the top of the canvas. So maybe something like that. And then coming through here somewhere. Like that, just like a nice ice cream cone. And then one or two bits up in here in the dark, in the nether regions of the painting. And we're not going to put that, there's a little bit of light that you can see on one side. I'm not going to put that in there. Instead, I'm going to move it and put it in about there. I want that dark to remain across that corner as it does here. There's a little bit of light pushing up there. Don't know what the flowers are, no idea. I don't know what any of these are. They look like lovely daisies. But that's about all I know. Now then, John, you know, Paul, would be you on the menu. I would. It's true. I would be. And if I do anything, because I've got to face with Wendy on Wednesday for class, I'd have to be very, very careful, John. So it's all back in your court, mate. Judy, what are you answering there? He's been drinking more than water. Me? Actually, I have had a beer. And I'll have a Guinness later. Okay, now then, let us look at these pretty flowers. So we've pretty much dressed the scene. And we're now going to go in and put some nice values, I think. Come back to this brush again, it's about the right size. And I'm going to mix up quite a bit of white. So I'm going to put a big puddle of white paint in the center there. Now I've changed the palette arrangement so that you can see the colors and you can see not all but quite a bit of the mixing, which I thought I put my brain together and thought that's what we'll do. Alright, so my colors are a pinky color white, aren't they? So I'm going to use, teach me to put my reds too close together, I can't tell which one's which. That is naphtha red, and I quite like that, but it needs to be a bit of blue in there, so I'm going to go in with some cobalt just to tease that away from the paint and give it that off-whitey, violety pink colour, which they suggest they are. But I think there's two piles of colour, so we need one that's a little bit darker. And for that I'm going to use a bit of rose madder. Very, very similar colour to the others, but it's got a bit more bite into it, I think. And my blue, I'm going to put a bit more blue in. It's got a little bit too blue. But no, maybe not, maybe not. Okay, let's go between these two colours to start with. G-Ben, good evening all. Good evening to you. And good evening to you. And if I've missed anybody, I do apologise in advance. Right, I'm just going to be randomly putting all this lovely shapes all over the place. Sorry. Okay, lots of highlight stuff going in here. Lovely colours against this nice canvas. This is a natural canvas, an oatmeal canvas. And I'm going to kind of quite a bit of area there. And I'm not trying to paint individual flowers. Trust me, it's just not going to happen. I don't do individual anything like that. I come in with a few darker ones that are maybe away into some of the background, and just one or two little shapes to back up some of the lighter ones. Let's come back into some of these. Hopefully this works. We hope so. I'm sure it will. But I'm just playing around at the moment because we've got a lot of work to do on this painting. and it doesn't help that I made quite a large painting to do, but I'm sure we'll get there. I'm going to put a little bit of rose madder into that, take some of the excess off. Now I'm making a big puddle of colour because I'm going to be using it quite a lot. There's another pile down here of these particular flowers, so I'm going to be using them quite a bit. And the flowers look like little discs. They are fluted on their petals, but I'm not interested in painting those little flutes. I am merely trying to look at the colour differences between the two, the greens, the darks, and the pretty flowers on top. I think that pretty much, one or two bit thicker density there, one, two coming across here, and then we've got a lot coming on down here, so let's crack on with some of those. And they're a lot whiter than these ones here. There's just a little flush of light in there we're going to come up and deal with, but to these ones and down here I'm going to come in with a little bit of Jaune Brilliant, which is the yellow from one of the only two colours I use from, that's a bit of a lie, isn't it, because the one colour that I do put on I haven't actually put on, but we'll make do without it for the moment unless it becomes crucial. But yes, I use I use Michael Harding colours predominantly, but there are a couple that he doesn't make, and so I have to go elsewhere for those, and those I go to Winsor & Newton for those. Okay, Sue, good evening to you. Yes, the white ones are snow in summer. Have a grey-green leaf. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever you say, Judy, you know a lot more about these things than I certainly do. But never mind, we'll get there. Just playing around. Now the trick with this is to keep your colours succinct and also clean, because especially when you start coming in with the negative spaces, they will soon become a problem for you if you don't take care. Just mess up some of the top here and just make them a little bit bigger, and maybe a few more strays over there. Nearly dip my thing in my drink. Would have been clever. Alright. Judy, did you say what they were then? I'm missing some of the chat. There's a lot of chat going on, which is fine. That's what it's for. But I'm missing some bit. I'm not quite sure what's being said. I'm going to come back in and mix up a green. And I'm going to mix up that green for the verdigris on the pot. Now I do believe that pot to be sort of maybe a bronze or a copper or something like that, which has gone that beautiful colour. And for that I've used cobalt turquoise and some Jaune Brilliant. I'm going to tap that in there, and that really does look as though it's a good colour. It's not far off. Not far off at all. Maybe a tap of white in there just to muck about with it. Not too much actually. I come back out of that and mix some more of the green in, a bit of the Jaune. Tap that in and play around with some of these shapes. And I'm just going to leave some negative space within the pot too, because I want to suggest where some of the darker leaves are coming in, and I want to give them space. If I try and put this light in and then I come back in with the darks further in, I'm going to have an almighty problem trying to make the darks stay dark, I'm afraid. So for that purpose I am just playing around with some of these colours to make them do what I want them to do, about where I want them to do it. Now I'm not sure, I think that pot is either very short or it goes down into the dirt behind here, and I'm going to plump for the latter. Now I didn't do what I should have done just there. Take that bit out there for a moment, come back in with a clean brush. And I want to tap in a little bit of white with a little nugget of cad yellow deep. And that will be whatever this beautiful flower is here. I'm just going to, I may have to play with that in a little while. I'm going to leave that like that. Quite a brilliant white. I'm going to leave that brush handy. I dare say I'm going to need some more. And let's just play around with that. I want to come in with some Indian red. Now it's got a lot of oil in that red, unfortunately. It's sort of separated in the tube a little bit. A bit of green into that too. Just darken down that green effect in places. Like so. Now the red kills the green. Of course, they are complementary to each other. So they will work as knocking the heck out of each other. Now I'm just tapping around these little white flowers, and as I tap the darks around them, of course they themselves become much more in evidence. When you want something to look bright, paint everything around it darker. And if you want something to look the other way, then do the other thing. Oh dear, it's one of those nights. Right, and deepening the shades and the values as this pot comes down. And one or two of these lovely flowers. I'm going to have to get myself another brush. And one or two more of these flower statements in. I quite like what they're doing, so I'm going to piling up my brushes a little bit now. And where are we? Taking this across, and I think we're a little bit more Indian red into that. A bit more of the green so they can kill each other off a bit more. And let's just come down towards the bottom of this pot. I'm going to isolate that flower. Now you watch how this dark around the flower makes that flower pop out even more than it did a couple of minutes ago. And it did quite well with the green that was around it, but just gone a little bit darker just helped push it out even more. Okay, need to come back in with the original green colour, a bit of that. Like that. Oh, I've gone over somewhere. I'm going to put my darks on. I just realised what I've done. Not a problem. Just wipe some off. This is a great canvas for wiping back because it has got a nice surface, quite a hard surface, and because of the way the canvas has been gessoed in the factory, it's a great gesso they use. I don't know what one they use, but it does really work. Sorry about next door's dog, decided to start mooning as it usually does. Normally you don't hear it because I've got the curtains and the windows tight, but unfortunately today I can't do that. Right, there we go. So we're starting to get the idea of this going now. Oh, so it's called snow in summer. Sorry, I didn't read that properly, Judy. Thank you very much for that. Snow in summer, people. There we go. Just what the doctor ordered. A light snow covering. And coming down further into these. Don't want to really lose any, if I can help it. And I'd rather leave a little bit of the canvas showing through rather than lose any, to be honest with you. I'm coming in a bit down in the corner here with some umber and some blue and a touch of that green. And let's just come in with the bottom part of this area. And then we're going to start working the negative space. I'm going to stop at that point, and I'm going to use yet another brush. And I want to put in the lovely cooler, icier colour. I'm going to put a bit of lemon yellow. Take some more white to that, more lemon. And I don't know what these are, but I think they are a lovely little sort of lovely light green, glossy violet, no not violet, sort of cool green leaves. I don't know what they are, I have no idea. But I'm putting negative space and positive space together as we come up to over the edge of that there. And there's a little less showing down here, but there's still in evidence. I'm putting a little bit through here. There we go. This could be my one and only ever further painting of flowers. You've got to know that in advance, people. It could well be the last time I paint flowers if this don't go right. Oh, will you stop keep rolling into everything? Okay, back to the plot. Cooking. That's the plot. Cooking. Right, just coming in here with some darks now into this area, much darker than I've got. So I'm going to come in with some umber and some blue, and to really darken down this area now. Up the side here, it's getting a little bit weaker with some of the whites picking up, so I might clear the decks as it were. There come in some more umber and some more blue, maybe a bit of phthalo. Just come out and get this getting quite dark in here. Isolate my pot like so, take it all the way up. Now I will soften the edges. I just want to blur the area. I'm going to come down and got a fairly clean brush, but I'm just popping over the two joints very lightly and blurring what you see. So it becomes a bit of a lost edge. Quite a nice little way of doing things, but you're not quite sure where the background starts and the pot starts or whatever. But you've got some idea, it just softens it. Okay, and now I'm going to use a much bigger brush. Oh, bigger than I have been anyway. And I'm going to take these darks on upwards. Now here I can do that. I can use some of that liquid too. Some more umber, some more blues, a bit of phthalo in there at the same time. Take these darks all the way up to this area. Being quite careful of what I have got going on here. I don't want to lose everything. So again, I'm just tapping carefully, trying not to pick up any of the white stuff. Inevitably you're going to get some, but it's just a case of trying to be a little more careful so you don't pick them all up. And then they become real in their isolation, and there will be some other greens that will come into them too. This is not a case of sort of dark meets light in the end of the story. That's not it at all. Okay, let's take that up there. We're going to come in with a bit of brick colour, but that's going to be very, very muted into a deeper violet colour, deeper purple colour, which becomes a stonework right to the edge of the panel. Again, you're not sure where the shadow starts, the wall starts, stops, and all the rest of it. It is just what it is, and we're going to bring that nice shadow right the way across here, and we'll come into that later with some strong light so that we really punch up our nice shadow. We'll leave it there for now. And let's come up here, let's get some of this dark coming on. Now up here I will tap on some lights towards the end because they're not as crucial as trying to save the space for these. Trouble with doing a lot of dark with a whole lot of this light on it, it will become grey and dull and miserable if you're not careful. So I'm going to sort of block all this in, leave a little bit of canvas popping through one or two places. And that will allow me to put a little bit of the light in on some of the other foliage. I haven't seen any of our American friends tonight. But maybe they're all very busy. Maybe, I don't know. Right. A bit more umber, a bit more blue, a bit more phthalo, a bit more movement with some of that. Let's carry on. It's getting very blue, so I'm going to bring in a lot more red. I'm going to put some more Indian red into the back there, which will work quite nicely with some of the other colours, the greens that will appear. So just coming around the top at the minute. I will come in with a smaller brush, but as you pick up some of these whites, they are going to disturb the rest. But in some ways that's not a bad thing, because what they do is create these mini coronas around themselves, and it's like a blurred light. I don't know if I'm explaining that too well, but I know what I'm trying to say. But there is this lovely degree of a corona around things when they're really bright. Sometimes you see that as you're looking, and it just makes the thing look even punchier, even lighter. Okay, so that's the idea. Now I'm working into them with this dark. And I'm turning the brush in different ways to suggest that. Like so. And later on I will just use a fine brush just to suggest one or two of the petals that are very obviously poking out and giving form to their actual shape, but not all of them. It's merely one or two to suggest that happening. They will lose the punch out of your paint if you're not too careful with it. So come across with a lot more of this, and let's isolate this flower a little bit more, then we can come back in. Let's do some of this heavy work now. Now this canvas will always look as though there are patches. Looks like it's not colouring up properly and it's jumping over stuff. And that's true. Sometimes you've got to work a little bit harder with this particular canvas to make that thoroughly solid in terms of colour and no little pinpricks of canvas popping through. It's only that some of it I think is just a little deeper than other parts, and therefore it takes a little bit more to fill that little space. And as you do, you know, that's fine, not a problem. It won't suddenly come out. And we're going to get a bit more red into some of these. Okay, that's cool. I'm not even going to try and pronounce its middle name. And I'm going to come back down here. I want to put a bit of green in. I also want a little bit of Indian yellow into that. Now that Indian yellow will turn everything that little more acidic green But because Indian yellow is a transparent, it will not overtly change it to a green. It will just merely shift. You can see that little area there. Shifted it to a bit more of the green values and add some cobalt green into that, and that effect can become even more noticeable through here. And as I come down to these other plants, I want that sort of dark, but I really want a real dark in there. I'm going to use some of the phthalo, some of the rose madder, some of the Indian yellow, and make a really punchy black dark colour. And I'm going to come in and see how much darker, even there you can see two colours. I hope you can anyway. But there is the green colour, and now there is a much darker value as we come down into the top of these other daisy type plants that are summer in snow and snow in summer. And ideally with this little brush, this picking up some of that pigment, and it's creating that little glow around them as I paint, as I pick a little bit of white up, so it creates that look. Now I could probably do this a little quicker if I change brushes for something that's got a little bit smaller and a bit more refinement to it, and just see how we go with that. Okay, carrying on. I'll bring this down into this dark, down into the side here. I don't want to pick too much of anything else up right now. I just want to get the bulk of this area covered out and done. Little taps, little misses. Even if you don't feel you have enough, you can leave a little area of the canvas showing and come back into that. Later on, so you know you can always add more little spaces to tap more bits of white flour in. So it's a bit of a slow old job. Turn that into there a bit. I will do the same on this as I did to the other one. I'm thinking that I've got to get the two sides pretty much married up first. Alright. I'm kind of quiet because I'm concentrating. I don't do it often, so enjoy it while it's happening. Lovely little colour variations going on. I know you probably can't appreciate it in the photograph, to be honest, but it is there. They are looking good. If we're still doing this come 9 o'clock, you know I was going to say I should have used a much smaller canvas. But hey ho, we didn't, and we will make of it what we can. I can always cut the amount of flowers down and paint over a few. I don't really want to do that. We haven't started up in here yet, no, loads of it to do. Because when 12 by 16 canvas in 2 hours or less is quite a challenge, gotta say. Especially as complex as this and with melting going on. Let's see how the glaciers are melting down as they are. That report on the TV tonight is very scary. Very scary indeed what we're doing to this planet. Right, just keep on and keep on and keep on. Defining, tapping away little areas, just building it up. Talk amongst yourselves. Right. Just so many. So how's preparations for back to school going, John? Are you getting your head around it all again? Is it all working out? Or is it just one headache after another, mate? I can imagine that the government are not making it easy for you. And it's scandalous what I saw today about the poor kids in Scotland and all their exam results being treated so with contempt by the government. No care, no nothing, just get the job done, bash it out there and that'll be it. It's very typical of government, isn't it? And our kids down this way, they're going to get theirs on Thursday. I bet Boris is really bottling it right now, because the finger of blame is going to probably point to him if it's gone very much the same way as the Scottish Parliament's done. I'm rambling on now. Don't apologise. I was John, sorry mate, I was saying how you getting on with your preps back to school stuff, mate. Are you coping, or is it a nightmare? Have the government made it so darn hard for you? I can imagine it's not an easy task anyway. Oh, big lump of paint, don't want that. Right, we're slowly making progress. Now, as these come down, they're going to get a bit greener and less of the dark, as more of the natural foliage is starting to wake up in the picture. So we're going to give way to a bit more green and colours like that into these darks. So it's going to be quite a dark green down here. Got it right, and it's still quite dark in that actual very base, because I've got a nice top and there's some shadows or something coming down. So I'm still playing around with a lot of these darks at this point. yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of controversy in the next couple of weeks regards all this, and I think it's just that the Scottish kids got theirs first, and that's why they're hounding Sturgeon, and rightly so. But I think come Thursday, the English government will come with Cropper, and Boris will have to face the music with his cronies. And rightly so. I mean, the kids put all their effort into doing these things, and it's not their fault that the world was taken by storm by this corona. Right. Lots of lovely colours happening between all of these, and that's partly because I am making different mixes and picking up different bits. So I'm running between sort of warm and cool greens, darks, reds, all sorts of colours are happening, which is quite nice. Just varies the whole lot up a little bit more. One of these days I'm going to be really brave and tackle a rose. I'm not a flower painter, but I've got this little thing going on in my head that I fancy painting a rose, but very loosely. I don't want it to be all sort of edged up in my head. I want it loose, and I'm going to do it sometime. I don't know when. Probably when I've had too many drinks one day. I don't make it sound awful, don't I? I don't drink that much. Only when I'm allowed to. And it's not that often. But yeah, I will probably get on and do a rose sometime. But we are getting this one kicked into shape. The paint's very wet down here. I put that on, but it's so hot that it's melting. It's not as stiff as it sometimes can be. Yeah, that's a fair point, John. It is what it is, and we'll have to make the best we can. I know when it comes to distancing with schools, kids, and any other situation, it's not easy, and that doesn't matter who. I mean, we brought back my classes in the gallery, and you know, as some of the girls on here tonight will attest to, that and guys, because I think we've got Keith. Is Keith here? Several of my regular students are watching this, and you know, they know how difficult it's been to adjust to the way we operate in the gallery, teaching and keeping distance. It's just not. It's not easy, and I will go as far as to say it's not that pleasant, not offensively unpleasant, but it's sort of the heat, the masks, and everything else is really, really hard to deal with sometimes, especially during these hot evenings that we've been getting. You know, my evening class, especially, of sort of by the time that time of day comes, my gallery is superheated from the air temperatures outside, and yeah, it becomes quite a problem. Okay, I think I'm pretty much done with that pot for the moment, certainly. Playing around with a few other shapes in there, but we'll leave that for the moment. I've got to come back into this one, and I'm sorry that this part is quite monotonous in many ways, and it is. I wouldn't be saying it any differently. It is quite monotonous, but the effect will be very little different if I was trying to paint light over the dark, to be quite honest with you. This way there is just a tiny bit more control to preserve the real lovely light colours that we've got going across this painting. Now I'm going to not come in too much further with those darks, certainly not on this grouping. One or two more in here. Okay, and then I want to look at the other greens. Now the other greens have got a lovely light green. It's a lovely lemony light green. And some darker. Now for this I will come in, I think, with the darker values first. So I'm going to use some of the green, and some Indian yellow. Just going to look back at that again, and more of the green. I think the Indian yellow is not the best choice. So I'm going to make a separate pile over here. Come in with some more cobalt green. That's probably somewhere I think that I want it to be. That's quite nice, and that will give me a sort of a mid-green in here that I can then just pop in one or two highlights further on. I'm just going to come back into this now and suggest the individual bits of foliage in this particular plant that we can see. And that goes off to the side, so we can just tap some greens into there, suggesting that the foliage does go off to one side. Yeah, get that, John. I understand that. Yeah, of course they will, Teresa. Not a problem at all. I'll put that up in the next day or so. Hopefully tomorrow, if I get a chance between lessons, and so you can have a go at it. And just popping in the mid-tone. There will be some lighter colours coming into this. It's by no means on its own in one colour green. I do want to leave one or two spaces for other colours to come into this, and not all of the flower heads to be completely finished at this point. So I'm leaving a real random mix of brush marks so that I can tap back in, and some of it will leave the oatmeal. I'm not worried. The oatmeal is particularly a useful ground colour, and I love it, so I'm not unhappy about seeing some of that come out into this picture. Now again, this is a myriad of colours and choices of colour in the negative spacing, because we are looking at all these greens here. We've gone from that colour up in here. We can actually bring one or two little bits of pops of green in to suggest that there is a mingling, a sort of giving way of colour from one to the other, where the darks no longer rule and the lighter green foliage starts to take over. And so there is that. But similarly at the bottom and throughout the plant, but mainly at the bottom here, that this plant will get a little darker here once more, and then it will give way to the reflections of on the ground. So this is really just tapping one shade, one value over another, and it gives way to the next one. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. In some ways it's a bit like newsprint. Now one value of dots gives way immediately to another one, creating a pattern, and the degree of dots, then called mesotint, will actually dictate what colour you see, whether it's a dark grey or a black or a light grey or white or somewhere in the middle. Okay, I'm going to do the same here, be a little bit more random with some of these green marks as they come down into this, and this will have a same colour green, but it will be treated slightly differently. You can see how I'm doing these little upward strokes, suggesting of the growth of this type of plant. I don't know what it is, It's got quite a cool feathery foliage, so I'm just trying to replicate that in my brush marks, but I'm also happy to leave the oatmeal canvas again popping through in support. I'm going to come down so far with that into there. A little bit more of this to go in here yet. Put some light ones in there against that pot, not to worry that those little, or those few marks were not actually showing up or doing anything. Okay, Luke, well, it's nice of you to join us. I hope you've had a great time. I know you were going to do the RH and DR, albeit not on it from a distance, but I hope you've enjoyed your time down at your grandmother's and not plagued her too much. I'm sure I'll hear some of it when I see Gran on Wednesday. Okay, that's enough of that for the moment. I'm just going to have a glug because I'm drying out. Oh, that's so nice. Okay, while I've got this colour on, I'm just going to pop in a few suggestive marks up in here that's sort of tapping away. I wanted it to be a bit deeper than that, so I'm going to come back in with some of the green, cobalt green, and just tap in one or two sort of leafy structures up into some of this dark. Ideally I would like it darker, and I don't think I've got it as dark as maybe I wanted, but we shall see. It's always potentially easy to go back in anyway and create another layer of dark, but there's too much paint on here right now to facilitate that happening, so you're going to have to live with it until it's dry and then come back in if I feel the need and add another layer of darks in some of these areas. It may be that we don't need to. Just some fairly expressive strokes, laying the brush down, tapping it. Don't over mix it, because the more mixing you do, the less chance of having that beautiful sort of segregation of colour. Tapping in, and I'm going to hopefully allow your minds see what you see and create flowers in the background just by these taps. If I get the taps looking about right, it's worked. If I don't, then it will look a mess. But hopefully you can start seeing other plant life going on. And I'm going to change from a flat to a that's a flat too. I thought it was a sure, I thought that was a filbert. It's getting a bit worn, unfortunately. No, it is a filbert, but a very worn filbert. Okay, let's just come in with a very cool bit of cobalt blue, green, cobalt green, cobalt turquoise even. Just want to mix up some of these colours coming into the back here, giving them a bit more of a green present, a little bit of that. Just mixing out one or two. Could be ivy leaves, could be almost anything. Put one or two things up here, and the green against these reds will work quite well, very nicely, so we'll make use of that. Just some deliberate taps here and there, leaf-like taps, but they're nothing of the sort either. They're not leaves, they're just taps and shapes, marks left in wet paint from the brush. And vary some of those marks and make some lighter ones in one or two places. Even in the shadows, greens take on different sort of colour values. Now we'll come back into a smaller brush at some point. Yes, you're telling me it's different, Sue. I don't do flowers. When are you not going to listen to me? I do not do flowers. A few greens and a few of those lovely, those really blue greens. Really cool. This colour is so beautiful because it's just so cool as a green. The cobalt turquoise is a lovely colour. I'm starting to use a lot more turquoise in my watercolours too. Got to be said, I love it. Great colour. Some of the American painters that use it predominantly, and that's where I've got it from, I've got to say. And bring some of those greens into here. Little taps, that's all I've been doing is just tapping away, to be honest with you. Taps of green, taps of red, just the yin yang of different concentrations of, sorry, I'm losing the plot. Different concentrations, I would say, of complementaries. That's what I was trying to say. Anyway, right, I'm going to put in one or two taps of colour lights so that are suggestive. I don't know, this is the other way of doing it. You can see how by tapping onto the black, one will go on there, two, after that they just start losing their composure as taps of colour. So it might look a little daisy-like to start with, but you soon lose it. And you'd waste so much paint and it becomes so insipidly milky that you wish you hadn't started. So I'm just being a little wary of that. I'm just putting in a little bit of white into some of this. Don't want to pick up and disturb it. I want to put in some more darks on this verdigris. So I'm going to come in with some darks and do just that. I'm just going to play around with some of these shapes in here, just mess it up a little bit. Down this side, give it a little edge to the shape. So we're getting a little bit of mix up down there, just so we lose some of it. It's really what I was doing on the other side. I want it to be there and I don't want it to be there. I want the sense of the green to show, but I don't want hard edges to show. So I'm even going to tap in and break up the top. Right, so a bit of finger painting never hurt anybody. Something like that. Just breaks up what just breaks it up, I think. That's what I was trying to get it to do. Come in there with a few more darks down in there. And the more I tap into the white, the worse my darks will become. And vice versa. Always remember that. And some of these warmer darks that I'm putting into this pot now give the cooler greens more presence as well. It's a little language that's going on between the two. And depends upon the degree of one against the other, depends who's sort of winning the conversation, as it were. Really feel I could use a thicker brush at this point. Just scratching, dry brushing over areas. Put a little bit more of the green back in, don't want to lose it all. A bit of pink into the green as well. See how that affects it. No, don't want to go too mad with lightening it. Just enough to make it work with all those warmer colours. I don't think that's too bad. I'm going to put that brush down for a moment. I'm going to be picking up a rig up very, very shortly. I don't know what time we're in to the painting. Rigger first, check on the timing at 1:08, just after the hour, so that's not so bad. It's still a long way to go, and what I want to put in is figure out how many brushes I can hold in my hand at one time, and turn them the right way would be even better. I'm going to come in with some white and a little bit of red and a little bit of the oxide of red, which is a very good substitute or transparent for the burnt sienna. I'm going to put a little touch of green, the merest touch, just to take it off. Green and red are complementaries. Added together, they start to become a grey. They start to annihilate each other. I get there. I promise I get there. Now I'm just coming in with an initial look at the pathway that's running through here and coming down, and we're going to come skip that area there because it's going to be a little darker and come straight down into this light area in here. But I only want to suggest it at this point. I really don't want to get too embroiled in painting too much like that. One, I'm going to get my elbow caught up in all of it. Secondly, it's another yin-yang business going on over here with the shadows. So I can do it now actually, and why not? So let's just come across. I think I have lost the bottom of my picture to the screen. So I'm just going to, if it will allow me. I didn't lose too much at all. I thought I had. I have actually lost the picture completely this time. I think that's the right one. Okay, I'm going to come across with this lovely sienna mix. If I had the orange, I might have used a bit of orange. I could use a little bit of yellow, go back into a little bit of the oxide of red, not too much. Just play around with these colours just to give me some really splendid lights. I really quite like the oxide of red into that white. It just gives that pinkier look. I'm just doing the same thing as I've done all over this painting. It's tapping in little relevant areas of light or dark, depending on what I feel is going to be needed in terms of shadows in this case, or darks wherever I'm going to be putting them. So let's just get this all blocked in while we can, and you can see how the lights in one area are holding the darks in from the other. It just works very, very well, I think. Okay, let's bring a little bit of this light down here. Now, I don't actually say this to you guys, because don't forget that after tonight's stream is over, then it gets viewed on and on and on by other people. So this comment is, it may sound odd, and hopefully it doesn't, but it's not meant to be directed at any person. It's just simply to say that all the paintings on all of my streams, all of them without exception, are all up for sale. Once they're dry, if they're in oil, of course, they can be sold unframed or framed according to whatever people really want. But I'm just simply saying that this will come up in the conversation during the course of the stream, that people can then say, oh, I like that picture, I'd like to buy it if it's still available. Heck, if they're watching it on Dave 10 years from now, hopefully it would have sold a long time ago. But you never know. So that's why I said that. Right, we're pretty much done on that. So I'm going to put this brush down for a little while. The brushes keep raw. I'm going to do something about that. I need a brush rest. I have had several over the years. I keep putting them down, losing them. But my brushes seem to be wanting to roll into the paint. Not the best. Right. I need another drink. And that's the end of that pint. If I need any more, I'll have to go and replenish. Right you are. Okay, let's just see where we're at with all of this. I want to punch in a few darker greens into one or two of these places. So it looks like there's a bit of leaf going on. I haven't missed anybody in the chat. Paul Brownlee Junction, I'm sorry mate, I didn't see you sneak in there. Just looking back up. So yes, good evening to you, Paul. I'll put in 1 or 2 greens up in here. There is obviously foliage in there, but it is very, very dark. The whole of this plant is pretty much getting under the shade. That's suggesting a few leafy things behind it, way back out of sight as it were, just little taps of stuff. Maybe 1 or 2 little areas that are tapping out a bit lighter. And in here too. Can't quite see where things start and stop, and that's the idea. Alright, that is that. Now I want to come across, get rid of that colour. Hi Tracy, good evening to you. I hope you've enjoyed the fair tucker the lovely Wendy has done for you. We were debating whether to send the enforcement police around to make you watch the video. But that was all John's idea, by the way, not mine. So anyway, I'm just going to come down here with the end of these bricks and tap them all the way up into there, and that red with that green just works so beautifully. And then come down here with this, and the line between, the light line between, is, I hope, representing the old mortar line between the bricks that you can see. I hope. That's the plan. And that's just the first layer of it, that's not the whole thing. Well, you never know, John. I've got to deflect the thing somehow. But there are witnesses. Wendy's only got to go back into the chat and watch it again. She'll know who's at fault, not me. Okay. Right, now then, I've got the rigger in hand and I'm going to have some fun. I'm making some different greens now. I want to try and put in the light of this lovely leaf in here. There's a beautiful, lovely green colour on that stem, catching the sun. Very vibrant like that, coming down. Probably not that thick on there. Take a bit of that out of it. Comes into a much darker green, so let's come back into there. Play around with that. Let's just come in with some darks. I think there's a little bit of mud stirring going on, John. A little bit of deflecting the truth, my man. Right. A bit of light in here. I am seriously melting, guys. I can't tell you how hot it is in here. Oh dear. And I don't know what that plant is, but I've made the plant. I hope it's okay. I put in 1 or 2 taps in here now. Catching the light, starting to catch the light. And 1 or 2 really bright ones up in here that are catching sunlight going up. Just twisting around with the brush. I want to put in a bit of those branches. I'm not quite sure. Sort of a dirty old blue-grey colour. I'm going to see if I can put those in. And so one that comes out and brushes next to there. Put that one in. I think that works. I've got a smaller one. I'm going to put in down through there. And that can go up and out of sight. And there's one that comes across it somewhere there. That they go on. And these other ones use them. Not quite where they should be. Not these ones, certainly not. But they actually help break up that little area of the wall. So I'm going to use that and leave them as they are. Now that bend's got a little bit more light in it there, as says that one. Just as it turns, it's catching a bit more light. Okay, well, who am I to say? That's a little bit too light. Let's come back in. Right. One and two. I don't know what that sort of quite pretty looking plant. I don't know what it is. I'll let it disappear. It's a little bit too strong in place, so I'm just going to let that come out and disappear a little bit. One or two things dangling down from this area up here. I'm going to put those in. I suppose painting plants helps if you know what plants you're painting. I have no real idea, but it's a whole heap of fun figuring it out. I'm going to come in with some dirtier greens in here now, just to mess this area up a little further. A bit more green into that. Coming down into some more darks now into this area. But I don't want to replace one with the other completely, it's just very suggestive. Very similarly in here, it's going to come down to some more darks. Okay. I'm just tapping away again as I was before. Now I'm introducing another value of colour to hopefully dictate the shadows or the darker or deeper areas of foliage that are still to be seen in here. One or two of them, but not everywhere. Equally, there are some areas of light too which we'll have to deal with. So I'm just trying to build the two areas out. Take that up into there so we get a nice area that finishes towards there. And again, you must always watch this when you're doing a picture, even though a sort of a flower goes off the edge of your page in a photo, you don't literally have to sit there and follow it off the page with your painting. Sometimes you stop short, change what you see a little bit so that it works nicely when it comes to framing, because you know yes, you can, of course you can take images off, and it's a well recognized way of doing some things. And if I'm doing an animal, I never cut its neck off and do a vignette. I always take it right off the edge of the page. And I was told that many years ago by a good friend of mine, sadly no longer with us. But you know, you just got to make sure you do that. Just coming down in here, I've got these lighty pink colours which I'm just being quite wary of, because I've got to still get some darks down into this area before they turn in purely into lovely violety shadows. So I'm still trying to play around with the darks at the minute. Also, some of the lines are quite directional, suggesting that you know the sun is pushing through, so you're seeing little bits of foliage that is pushing forwards and at a certain angle. Hopefully it makes the whole thing pretty believable from that regard. One or two darks up in here just to give a little bit more substance to the bunch or the edges. I hope it looks okay. I can't really see it. I'm that quite close to it, so I can't see it as you guys are seeing it. There's a few darts coming down in here to reinforce the base of these ones. And again, these will suddenly become shadows. Shadows. So now let's look at the shadows. Thanks, Therese. I appreciate it. It's trying to keep it a little bit, for want of a better term. I know I don't like this term, but in some ways there's just no way of saying it. But yeah, it's just trying to keep it very loose and very free. Now that has got a little bit out of hand. That violet's gone too. I picked up some phthalo blue, which is too much yellow in it. So let's come back and remix it. A little pile down here. I may have to wipe some of this board off in a minute. Come in here with some lovely ultramarine blue. Now I can dirty it out with some green in there. And just take that to the bluey dark colour that I'm going to need in here. And I'm going to replace some of these darks now with this bluey shade that suggests a huge network, capillary of shadows. Nothing more. Just shadows that the plants are creating across the hard ground, stone pathway, whatever you want to call it, through here. So I'm just going to start playing around with these now. I may have to seriously mix up some more. I'm literally scratching the brush all over the surface as I bring this forward. So David, if you're still watching, hope you are. Yes, you are. Sorry, mate. That was a bit freaky. I was looking down, said your name, you just posted a comment. That is weird. So yeah, David. You asked earlier in a comment on the channel about sort of how hard is oil over watercolour, and is watercolour harder? Well, I think generally they both have good and bad points, my friend. The idea is that with oil you can work as I'm working now, of course, and once you understand its properties, then it's not a problem. The problem with oil that puts people off is they think they have to have all these awful sort of different chemicals in the form of spirits and different odors and horrible things which partners hate. And of course we don't like sort of getting on the wrong side of our partners. But the point I'm trying to say is that watercolours in that regard are much easier than oils. Of course they are. I'd be a liar to suggest otherwise. What I'm trying to suggest about the two is that although the setting up and the execution of a watercolour is certainly the setting up, not the execution. The setting up of a watercolour is easier than getting to grips with an oil, because an oil can be a messy problem if it's done in the wrong way. Whereas a watercolour can be done in the simplicity of your home, not going to cause any problems. You can pack it away fairly easily, you can travel light. And so to that end, watercolour, has to be said, is much easier than oil. However, there is a caveat to that, and that is that the discipline of doing watercolour over oils is somewhat harder to master. People will spend a lifetime watercolouring and never get to grips with it. You can spend a lifetime painting oils and never get to grips with it. But the thing is that with an oil you have the ability to eradicate a mistake to a greater or lesser degree. And when you paint in watercolours, sometimes you can get rid of something, but very often not, you have lost the painting, even right up to and including the very last brush mark. So to that end, it's an unforgiving medium. And when it's unforgiving, it becomes harder, because there is always the situation at hand that you need to plan. And that's where a lot of watercolour people, watercolourists should I say, go wrong. they don't plan enough when they are planning to do a painting. It's all about understanding where you're going to do, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. It's a little bit like playing chess in many ways. You've got to, you know, a good chess player will have beaten you before you even make your first move, because he will have worked out his moves ahead of time in his head, and providing you react in the way he thinks, pretty much you will, he'll have won the game. And it's the same with watercolour. You really have got to understand it and learn how to practice so that you can then make it an easy job, an easy task. I'm just going to come up here with a little bit of a shadow of one or two things, right there and up into there. Make that happen. I don't know if it's a shadow or some creeper, I'm not quite sure. But I'm going to put a few sort of marks in here into the, what could be the stones, bricks. There's a shadow one there. Maybe a bit redder. Slightly wider still. And you can suddenly start putting in, you know, the brick shapes the other side, whatever you want to do in that regard. And then just bring it down here. Dragging some of that white paint in will create the little white marks that are suggestive of the mortar lines of the individual bricks that are coming down, like so. And then a little bit of dark around underneath that brick. There's a little lip to it, and you can see that comes down, so just bring that under there and protect the mortar line. Okay, where are we at? Put a bit more light into there. Didn't really want to touch that, but I did. So one or two taps around here. What I'm painting, but whatever they are, they look pretty. Right, now then, we are going to look at some highlights on some of these plants. So make a separate puddle and a little bit of lemon yellow just into your white. Let it move, get it going, maybe a tap of that. Don't put too much of the liquid in because it will weaken the mix a bit. And I just want to put in a few marks that are, is that going to work or not? Because it's going to contaminate pretty quickly. I want to use a bigger brush to do that job with. I'm trying to put in a roundish mark with a rig on it. It really is not going to work that way. So come here, remix, take some paint out. That's contaminated, there's dirt in that brush. Come in again and have a remix. And I'm going to actually try some of that, some of the Tromblient, just to take it off. The lemon was fine, it's just working too hard against the violet. I'm just going to put in a few sort of taps. You've got to be careful, I think it's on the close of not doing it. But I'm just going to try and put a few visual highlights in on some of these. It's almost one tap before it's contaminated, and then you've got to go and refill and redo it. I really don't feel I'm going to do any more than that, and I think these are doing their own thing. Yeah, it's just going to pick up. Now if you were doing this not alla prima, if you were doing this as a painting that you were doing over a period of days or whatever, then you could allow successive layers to dry. I don't have the luxury of that. This is very much alla prima, and you know, I all in one sitting. And yeah, I think that Yeah, no, that's cool. It's very good. I mean, I'll give you as much help as I possibly can, David. I said that, and it's not a problem. Yeah, so I want to just play around with some of these lightest greens on this plant just a little bit more. Some more highlights in here. So yeah, so you've got to either be mindful of the ala prima, the situation that you're in, that you cannot just blast away with colour and expect it not to cause you a problem, because it will come back and it will bite you hard if you don't remember some of these things. It's got some nice little tops to them. Just want to put that in. Quite pale little flicks of light green in here. One or two little bits of something coming up through these two. I don't know if it's the same plant or what. I think they're a fresh little. I'm going to put a few stems to one or two of these very, very thin taps of green colour that suggest that, you know, these are attached somehow to the parent. Very, very thin little wisps of colour coming away. Don't want to overdo it, don't want to make them too thick. One or two in here too, just very suggestive that they are attached and not just floating in space. There's a lot more stuff going on here, and as I said, there are some lovely lights happening, so let's try, before we finish, just try and put one or two extra leafy green colours, brighter, lighter colours into some of this. Which brings up the highlights of one or two of the leaf patterns further in. Don't want to lose any of the flowers, of course. Well, I don't think this is a problem, this painting. I've enjoyed it, and you never know, I might start painting more flowers, but don't bank on it. A few more maybe. I'm having a lot of fun with them. I think there's a few little heads up with buds on. I'm going to put a few up that have a little pinkish mark at the top of it, and a few little lights coming down in here where the light of the sun is just popping through, hitting a few leaves, brown marks. Again, in a very suggestive manner, we're just putting little taps on. That working in this way with the flowers is not unlike the way that I was working in watercolour doing flowers when I did the Great Dixter painting a few weeks ago. Hello Jean. Okay Paul, thanks for dropping by, mate. Yes Jean, I hope you enjoy it. I've enjoyed painting it. It's certainly I'm just putting a few bits and pieces, almost finishing touches. We're not quite there yet. I'm just putting sort of I's and T's in now, as it were. Maybe one or two little taps of something over here, just at the end of that path, disappearing behind it, so that you can see the lights picking up on those two, just add something to that. Maybe one or two lights just coming into some of this too, where it's just coming back up again, and some of the foliage, or the leaves are just sort of coming down and picking up again, so they're just catching a little bit of light through here. Maybe that's what that is there. I don't know. I couldn't tell what that was. It just seemed to sort of have a bit of light on it in places where it goes over the top. Alright, there's one thing I've got to do and I haven't done yet, and that is very, very much a case of the lovely yellow centres. Now these I'm going to put in with Cad Yellow Deep, with a little tap of Cad Red, just to make them a little oranger than they were. Orangey, I don't know, whatever. And I don't want to put a centre in each one. I just want to put in just some, and mix up some of those colours, some lighter, some darker, not all bright, and they will ping. So you're going to knock them back a little bit. And put here, I'm going to put in a little bit of blue violet, and violet blue, of course, with yellow is a complementary, so you're going to get the yellowish effect, but you're going to get that shadowy yellowish effect. Mix the two together to come somewhere in the middle. Just doing little centers, little taps. Don't worry about getting them all. No big deal. Same down here. And down here you can actually put in a little bit more. There's a lot of oil in that zinc. So down here you can put it in, there's a lot of light, so these will take a little brighter yellow in them to suggest their centres. I'm aiming as best as I can, but I'm not going to get everyone in the centre, I'm not worried. It is merely a situation where you do not have to actually make a precision mark. This is merely your painting, and it's merely a suggestion of the reality. It's your feeling for it. I think often artists or people learning to paint put such an emphasis on it must be absolutely spot on, and they beat themselves up, and it's awful to see that happening. I've seen it in my classes, that you try to explain to people that it's just about the painting, it's about having fun, it's about the process of learning, and you know, you make mistakes, we all make mistakes, and eventually those mistakes become less and less. The more you learn, the more practice you give it, the more time you allow yourself to enjoy it. But if you just go out there and every time your dog doesn't look like a dog, your flower looks like a weed, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter what it is, but all the time that keeps happening, you're never going to give yourself a chance. Now we're coming to the end of this, and I could probably keep going for ages. I don't think I want to. I think I'm sort of finding a natural conclusion to this myself. Just want to put in a little bit more blue-violet shadows across here. Just going to give that a bit more weight in one or two places. I don't know what that was, some sort of message. Bit of blue, bit of magenta, it's gone off a little bit. That's too much. Put a bit of green into that, it's quite nice. Do I like it? Oh, not too sure, I'm just looking hard at it. I think it's just got too much going on. I'm going to take a little bit of that off. Work it backwards. Sometimes you should leave well alone. So I'm going to use the negative space again and just come back in with this just to replace some of those marks without dirtying it all up. Okay, that's a lot better. I'm thinking, part of me is thinking that I want to put in a few cooler shades of that flower, but I don't think I've got enough room. It's very, very soft pinky colour anyway, so to that I would need to come back in with that and some cobalt. So that's using the rose madder and cobalt, but I think that it's still going to be a type of zinc white into that. Bring it up slightly without overpowering it. Just see what one or two other values in here might enhance the lights and darks. Arguable. I mean, it's not a problem. Not need to wipe them out, but whether they bring too much to the thing, I don't know. Splatter a few, make them look more daisy-like would help. But then there are different pattern and shape to some of these others, so perhaps I ought to leave well alone. I think change some of the ones that I've done to become, you know, in keeping with the rest. Now they're all out on the one side, so I really want to bring in one or two here and just tap their centers in a moment. Okay. That's all right, Sue. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I've got a little centre in one or two of those. Okay, well I think we've pretty much got it sorted out. I think you keep going, you're going to regret it. So I'm just going to take enough fluid and to kick up the brush for a signature down here out the way. don't forget to pass the word around, everybody, about these live streams and my videos. It all helps if we can keep the viewing numbers up and get them increasing. That would be wonderful. So yes, if you know somebody that might well avail themselves of watching these, if I don't put them all to sleep, that'd be great. But with that all said and done, I think the next one will be Friday. It'll be a watercolour. I don't quite know what it's going to be yet. I never do. I'll think about it and I'll suddenly make a decision, and then I'll put it up the last minute. And hopefully you all get to see it before it happens. But there we are. I've enjoyed this one, guys and girls. I really have. Been a lot of fun, even though it is hot. I appreciate your comments in that regard. It's very kind of you. But I enjoy painting, so it's just nice to be able to paint along with company. Sometimes, not always, but it's nice on these streams. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. So there we are. Let's take that up a little bit so you can see. I turn the lights around a little, get a little bit less glare on the subject. I think it was quite successful. I'm quite happy with that. I mean, all things can be improved, I'm sure, but I quite like what's happened with that one. And it's quite a big canvas to cover, so 12 by 16 for this sort of image is quite a lot of work. But I think we brought it off. I think we've got lovely patterns over here. The flowers look daisy-ish, but they're only taps. The taps of colour. Taps of colour on here. Taps of negative space. The lights, the greens. It's just pretty much a small 1/8 inch, just a little bigger, 3/8 inch, whatever it is, little flat brush, and it's done most of the work. Yes, that's actually a very good point, and I do take some. My wife's an avid gardener, John, and she's made our garden into a very inspirational place to sit in and be a part of. And I don't do enough, I have to say, but I do some, and I will use more and more of them. And Judy, I've got to say, if you're still watching, oh, you are. I've done it again. Judy, I went over to UCA, UCM, UCD, whatever, your business today, where I saw Alan and Sally, and I have to say I was just punch drunk with the buildings around that place. Oh, I took a few photos, and I'm going to paint some of that. I think that was totally powerful stuff, and I don't know how well you know the people who own all of that, but if you are in conversations with them on a friendly basis, then maybe you could stick a word in that I come over there sometime and just walk around, as long as I don't pose any danger to anyone, and take loads of photos, because I would like to actually paint over there, plein air there. Awesome place, love it so much. Yeah, absolutely, John, that's not a bad idea. As I say, I don't normally paint flowers, and everyone will tell you that, but there's just something in doing it this way. I think if you said paint that daisy or paint that rose as it is, I'd have a problem with that. Not that I couldn't do it, it's just that I don't see any point in doing it. With this, I find the freshness and the spontaneity and you know, the brush marks, the energy is worthwhile, and that's what I enjoy about it, I've got to say. So yeah, we'll see. Alright guys, well we are almost, if not gone past the 2 hours. No, we're coming up to it. It is just, well, I mean, you know, it's a lovely place. But if you know them well, Judy, maybe you could have a word with them on my behalf and see if they would be favourable for me to come over sometime and do something like that. I took a few sneaky shots on the way out in the car, but I'd love to be able to sort of sit down there and paint some stuff on several visits, not just one, on several, because you can't do it all in one. But yes, see what they say. That'd be great. In the meantime, everybody, I will be getting ready for Friday, where I've got a new watercolour coming out this week. That was filmed this afternoon, and that will be out Friday morning. And I've also got my $10 patrons video, which is going to be in 2 parts this month. So you will have that to look forward to. I'm working on it. I've done the $5 one this month, so I'm working on a 2-parter for the $10 and above. Yeah, what else to say? Not a lot more to say, but just spread the word, you know. Let people know about this, and get other people interested maybe, and see how we go. In the meantime, people, happy painting, stay safe, keep cool wherever possible. I feel like I'm going to dive straight in the shower in a minute and get a Guinness. I'm not sure on what order that's going to be in, but it's going to be one of them. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining me. Your support, as always, is very, very welcome. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'll catch you all very soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now. We'll talk about it, Judy. That'll be fantastic.